Hello, my name is host Eric, and I am very hopeful my dogs will cooperate, and if they don't, I'm going to have to stand up and go outside and scold them a little bit. But in the meantime, what I would like to do is introduce the topic of an earlier video in which some individuals in the room were casting aspersion on the MBTV professional typing services. Let me close this garage door, which at least will shut up the dogs a little bit. Go ahead, Chad, and state your position or recap what was happening in that earlier video or something like that. Let me mute myself and deal with this dog problem. Deal with the dog problem.
Okay, so first off, it wasn't actually the other video that inspired me to be here. I did watch it. I actually laughed. I found it kind of amusing. The amount of anger toward charging someone for typing services was kind of funny to me. And now, granted, I realized that the entire room was full of NTs, and and so, you know, we see things a different way. For example, I don't want to be taught by somebody. I don't want somebody to sit there and tell me, unless I go to that person and then they tell me, and I say, hey, look, I want to learn from you. You know, and that's a different thing. But if I have somebody who just shows up and then starts giving me advice, I'm not going to take too well of that. You know, so given the perspective of these NTs who I haven't worked with, I can definitely relate to their standpoint and their viewpoint. And I think they had a lot of valid points. I think the difficulty with the entire discussion that was earlier was primarily on the topic of what is actually involved in an MBTI typing consultation. Because nobody knew.
That's true. Nobody had any idea what was involved. I know it involves some personal attention, at least one of the options I heard Trey mention did.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and so that's where the challenge was, because you didn't have any MBTI representatives to be able to talk to you about how or actually defend the standpoint of why one would charge for services.
Well, fortunately, we have one now.
Yeah, so that's not my. Obviously, there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but let me put it this way: I think that the biggest reason why I think it's worth any time is because we live in a country where skills are meritable, skills are sellable. And if you're good at something, you can charge for it, whether it's making crafts, whether it's sitting in a chair and somebody wants to watch you or paint you. It doesn't matter what it is. If a consumer is willing to purchase a certain skill you have, then it's a marketable thing. Now, the question is it ethical to sell something that's really about typology in itself? Because ultimately, MBTI does state that the user or the subject determines their own type. No one else does. So I don't pick someone's type and say, oh yeah, you're this type, absolutely. No, that's not what I do in a consultation. The process of the consultation and why it's actually worth a service, in my opinion, is because it takes expertise, funnels it in a protocol that helps people better understand why they are different from everyone else in their type. And so mainly the clients that I work with are people who are not black and white. Like for me, I was pretty black and white. As an NTJ, I immediately knew what I was. Needing somebody to tell me my type wasn't really necessary for my personality discovery. However, there's a lot of people out there that are confused in type. There's a lot of people out there that need to be coached, yet they may be told by somebody, no, you're an IFP, and they'll accept that, and they may go 6 months without knowing if they really are or not, or they may assume that, and then they realize they're not. So where the expertise comes in is knowing how to ask the right questions in order to get the result that is actually most accurate for that person, that they can agree with and say, that is what I am, yes. Versus just telling someone, hey, this is your type, this is your type, this is your type. No, oh yeah, I see TI here, so you're this, or I see NE here, so you're this. It's really just getting the person to agree. And so what you're selling is not your type. You're not selling, you're not selling, hey, look, you're an INTP. What you're selling is you're selling the expertise that you have and your ability to ask questions in order for someone to discover their own type. It's a personalized walkthrough.
Right.
And that's a skill that takes time to learn.
And I agree with you completely, and I especially agree with your delineation of the realities of capitalism and the goodness of capitalism. I want to stress that there's one thing that Chad, Crandall, and I are 100% on the same page about. It's the goodness and truth of capitalism. The goodness and truth of meritocracy in general, of rewarding skills in the marketplace that are developed and people have good cause to claim might have utility to others. As I said in that video at the end, and I maintain as my core position, if the customer is happy with the product, then you've done a good thing in general, and
Right.
both parties have benefited. And if the customer is not happy with the product, well, then you're not going to stay in business very long. So,
Exactly. That's my viewpoint on it 100%.
So, I'm with you there, Chad. As far as the typing goes, also, I understand that if you come here and get typed on Talking with Famous People, you know you're getting typed primarily for entertainment purposes, right? I'm not claiming to give you any personal insight into your life, particularly, except insofar as you find things I say resonant with your life. I'm not trying to position myself as somebody who's doing a psychological session of some sort with a person. It's because I'm going to try to guess what your type is, basically. I mean, that's a very different thing than a one-on-one session. And obviously, for me, my model is such that I just encourage people to participate, and to the extent that there's an exchange of value, they allow me to have extra content that includes them, and in return, they get to be part of this content and whatever else they get out of the conversations and everything else. So it's a different model, but it's the same basic idea that I'm giving my time and energy in exchange for value.
Right. And in this case, it's value in building your subscriptions, entertainment base, everything else. And it's still a capitalistic angle, whether you're actually monetizing it or not.
It is monetized. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
I don't have that little button on my thing that says donate to me. But here's the thing. I think you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can put that there anyway. So I don't think I have that.
Trey has it on his personal channel, and he doesn't have 1,000 subscribers yet. So I think you have to find a way. It should be possible. I don't remember exactly how I went about putting that on there, but I think he put it up there.
And who knows? I may end up doing that as well. I'm not sure. It's like I say all sorts of shit. I say all sorts of shit. Some of it's consistent with other shit I say. Some of it's not. But in the end of the day, I like the idea of making money, and I like the idea of making money off something that I think is enjoyable, not too straining or taxing, and also hopefully helps other people. I really do care about that. I want other people to like me, and one of the best ways to get other people to like you is to be helpful.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I put up so many YouTube videos as well, because I don't want to be the only source where people feel like. Let me give you an example earlier. Someone had accused me of setting someone up, and actually, okay, Eric, you got to hear this. Okay, so earlier today I had someone, there was a few weeks back, this particular person had his type questioned, and a couple people said, no, I think you're an ISFP. And this person thought they were an INFP. And like, no, you're an ISFP. You're an ISFP.
Okay.
So frustrated that they came to me to be typed. Okay, so I helped figure out their type, and they were really 100% about their type. I had someone else accuse me that I hired those people to make him confused on his type, so that way I could get a typing session in. And I'm like,
you would have to be quite the mastermind to. I guess it's possible.
You really think I am? That I'm going to throw that out there to get some. I mean, it was a valid argument. I thought it was pretty funny that someone would put that up there, but no, that's not how I go about business. Like I said, I'm a believer in. I think there's only one business in the world, and it's the business of making people's lives better. And if you're taking away more than you're giving, then A, your price is wrong, and then B, you're not offering a quality product or service.
Right.
And so that's the issue that I have with the whole thing. And I think the other thing that people don't realize is Myers-Briggs has a whole other assessment, which is your Step 2 assessment, which is pretty awesome in itself, and it's worth the consultation to go through that, because it does identify your individualized type versus just an INFJ. Now you can be a contained, logical, and receiving INFJ, or rather expressive INFJ versus just INFJ. And this is for people who are confused about their type, or saying, you know what, I can feel really extroverted at times, or I'm really introverted at times. And I think that's where it really comes into play, is being able to distinguish that as a typing professional, to be able to determine the difference between someone who is an INFJ who is just expressive versus an INFJ who's not.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a nice, solid endorsement for the Type 2 MBTI protocols. For the Type 1 Talking with Famous People protocols, this feels like the end of a video, and I typically end these things based on when it feels like it. So I don't know. It's kind of haphazard in that regard. But I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. Always nice chatting with Chad Crandall of MBTV, and you can go to his website and his channel if you'd like to check out his options for typings. And that that level 2 assessment sounds very interesting. So have a nice evening, and as always, please don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.